Hello, today I'm talking today a little bit about ruling my realm. And just before I get into that, actually, I was going to tell you a story. So we were at, they have this, I'm in Esquimalt in BC, just in Victoria. And we were at this Rib Fest outdoor thing where there's all these big, there's like six of these different, rib barbecue shacks that are cooking off, and there's a open air concert, and just like thousands of people there. And I thought, I sat on those lineups waiting for like the hour to get my food, and I'm like, if I could just get 1% of these people to buy my stuff, I don't know. I'm just in these public moments, and I think, if I could just get, anyways, that's just an aside. Um, so, 2 videos ago, I talked about what's the big picture for my software company, and what I'm trying to do is look. I was starting off by looking at the market as a whole. Where's my fit? What am I doing? Where have I positioned things? What do I need to do to get it to where I need to go, so that I'm helping people, you know, run their business better? And so drilled into that, got to the 15, using the 1585 rule, drilled it down to, okay, the first thing I need to do is I need to, figure out how to get people onboarded properly, because I've got some people who are interested in getting on my system, and I haven't been doing that as slick as I should be. So I need to make sure that that process is super easy, and it just works. And the other thing was working on then is, okay, well, to get people interested in my system, what do I need to do for marketing there? So that's kind of an aside. So I went today and I thought, okay, I'm going to start to dig into a little more detail. What does that first 15% of this onboarding experience need to look like? So there is a technical onboarding where the user registers and it connects to the software to Amazon. We do a bunch of technical stuff, syncing with the database and Amazon, so it's all ready to go. Once that's done, they get a kind of a kickoff email saying, "Hey, welcome to the system." But the question is, now what? So I've been waffling around. How do I do a series of emails? Do I do maybe some sort of checklist in the system? But in terms of getting them to the point of zero to being fully ready to go. So I thought, okay, well, I need to first start. What is defining my end goal? What's my end game for someone during their onboarding experience? And so I came up with this kind of statement here saying, I want them to be fully self-reliant and that they're making strides towards their goals. Well, to unpack that a bit, if I say, okay, well, if that's the end goal here, working it backwards, what's that first 15%? What's that first most critical phase? And so I need them in the system and using it, basically. So I said, okay, well, let's break that down. And the first 15% of that is logging in, changing the password, adding our email chain to their safe senders, that kind of stuff. So that's really, really basic stuff. Following that, what's the next, sprint on that is this another chunk here. And I said, okay, well, let's break that down. They need to start with a basic setup. So we have some preferences settings, if they're going to use a Dymo, printer, or if they're going to, what time zone they're in, that kind of basic stuff right there. What's their address? What country are they in? Basic things. And then what I feel is really important is to get them into a habit of, getting people into a habit of using it. Because if you're not using something, you're never, if you're not doing the basic stuff in a system, you're never going to adopt it. You're never going to change away from your old behavior and adopt a new behavior. So you have to kind of move towards that step and get your feel for it. And then before you maybe just retract, like in my consulting world, what I used to tell clients who are trying to implement some sort of automation or some sort of process improvement, I said, well, one of the things you have to do first is you have to kind of design a process. What does that look like? What do they need? What are the steps along the way so that people are knowing what to do? How do they do that? And then once you've got all that, the documentation, now you can step back and say, okay, how can we automate this and make it faster, make it better, less error prone, that kind of stuff. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is provide an onboarding process so that, okay, I've mapped out, here's how you are successful with this system. This is your approach that will get you to implement a methodology that will give you the ability for you to rule your realm better, and therefore you're going to be reaching your goals. And as a result, I need to get kind of those basic steps done here. So I'm working it into this first, catalog of things that I would like someone to do as a kind of something that's 5 to 10 minutes a day to kind of get them rolling, get them started, get them a feel for the layout of the system, so it's not overwhelming. And then they'll be able to say, okay, this isn't too hard, so it's not a huge monumental task. Then they can get going. So breaking it down into these levels here, saying, well, I need them to create their first purchase order in the system. To do that, they need to flesh out their supplier details. So that's the first 15% for that. And then before they can do that, they need to manually input their first supplier and their first SKU in the system so they can add all the other details, and then therefore they can create a PO. Makes sense. And so I thought, okay, well, I can go down and add more and more and more to this whole list of, you know, expectations and steps. I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop there, because if I haven't mastered this yet, if I haven't figured out how to communicate this and get this into the hands of my users, nothing else down the line is going to matter. So my goal now is I'm trying to figure out, do I want to use emails with maybe a series of videos, or just put something in the actual user interface where, and I'm leaning this way. It's just maybe there's an onboarding page that they see when they log in. It says here's a checklist of all the things. Once I've got all the things kind of fleshed out, and say, okay, well, you're on step 0 of 10. Check. You've got step 1 done. Boom. Step 2, check. So it gives them a visual progress. And I've seen that in a lot of software, so obviously it works. So I'll probably do that. And kind of one of the things I've also figured out with all this approach and this methodology is it gets really messy to look at. It gets a little bit harder to visualize. It's easier in my mind to think about it, but I need to be able to maybe have a way to build these plans a little more easily. And as I can see, it's kind of hard to digest this. So I'm thinking this might be a good opportunity to create a tool to build out your 1585 rules and have a planning software, so you can make these plans yourself, because it's actually really slick. It makes lets you drill right into these things in the most elemental. You really can focus on the important things and you avoid less important things. There you go. So this is what I've been working on today. I'm going to work on drilling into all these things and figuring out how to implement all that, and let you know how it goes. Cheers.